Welcome to the Beyond the Business podcast. We got Stephen Courson with us in the house. He's the runner of Stephen Courson's shows, the Courson Solutions, and he's huge on LinkedIn. We're going to dive into the story a little bit about his background, but especially for you graduates, this story and this mission is for you in this conversation. Let's join him in and welcome him to the show. How's it going today?
Hey, Brayden, doing really well, man. Excited to be here.
Excited to be here. Before we begin, we go through the short question section, long questions, it's our millionaire secret or your insight. I want to just ask you just explain a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. No, it all started back in 1987 when my parents. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to go back that far. No, so I was actually homeschooled majority of growing up until about high school. Ended up being the first one in my family to go to college. Went to the University of Florida. It was great, and then got a job in sales for a company called Gartner that does management consulting and research. And that was really a huge job for me because when I got it, what they did is they had me working with C-level executives of Fortune 500 companies. And I was the liaison between some of these executives. And then we would bring in these analysts or consultants to kind of talk business with them. And that's really relevant for a reason with what I'm doing now. So then fast forward, had a lot of success during sales. Eventually left there after a little over a decade, went and worked at a SaaS company, Salesforce, really big organization. Had a lot of success there. But at that point in my life, I kind of knew I was heading toward, entrepreneurialism was calling my name. It had been for a while. And it was just kind of waiting for a right time, right when we were looking to potentially have me start my own company in 2020. We ended up finding out we were pregnant, not just with one kid, but two. So twins was a little bit of a surprise. And then we got this little bit of a pandemic thing that kind of, turned the world on its head there for a second. And we were like, okay, what's going on? So put everything on pause a little. But then what ended up happening was after things settled down a little bit, just knew, hey, you know what? I had an opportunity for a promotion. There's a lot of money involved and I wasn't happy. And I just knew, and not even happy. I think we get caught up on happiness too much. I wasn't fulfilled is really what matters because entrepreneurialism is miserable much of the time. So if you want to be happy, don't become an entrepreneur, okay? And don't ever try anything new if that's the big thing. But I just wasn't fulfilled anymore as the blues king, the blues man, B.B. King himself once said in his song, "The thrill was gone." And I knew it was time for a new season in my life. So I ended up turning down the promotion and quitting, much to the surprise of everybody. And now I've started up Courson Solutions, which is what I do now. And I run programs and trainings and events and put out a whole bunch of content to help people design the life that they want and, make money, man. So that's what I do.
100%. There's lots of podcasts out there. And one of our key differences, I think, is we only interview entrepreneurs. So it's like, oh, you're an entrepreneur? Let's get you on the show.
All right. I love it.
Brief background, though. First, right off the bat, we're going to go through our 23 AI-generated questions. I just want you to choose 3 numbers, and then we'll go from there.
I just pick any 3 numbers?
Between 1 and 3 and 23.
Between 1 and 3 and 23. 5, my favorite number.
Okay.
23, Michael Jordan, my favorite basketball player. And 17 because it's random.
Okay. 5. Can you tell us about significant turning point or moment of clarity in your career?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like 5. Okay, so I'm actually going to hit you really early on. I was actually in college, so not necessarily career, but I had a job. And what I did was I thought I was going into the healthcare world, and I was working on my my NASM license to become a personal fitness trainer. So I got a job at a gym, and I was probably 19, I think at this point, 19 or 20. And I got a job at this gym, started working there. It's a really like world-class gym, very nice gym. Um, 2 stories, state-of-the-art equipment, all this other stuff. It was a big deal to get this job.
Mhm.
So I'm in this really nice environment, fast-paced. I'm like working alongside former Olympians and like all this other stuff. And it's just an amazing opportunity to work at this gym. And then all of a sudden, I realize I'm making $11 an hour and they're charging $65 an hour for clients to come in. And I'm going, I have to find the clients, I have to bring them in, I have to do the training. Like literally, they're providing the facility. That's it. And I was like, and I'm only making less than 20% of what we're billing them. And then that was the moment that I knew I was going to own my business someday. Took me a little while to get there, and that's totally fine. I don't regret any of it. But at 20, having that experience and recognizing the difference, that was my first real insight into why you want to be a business owner.
100%, 100%. Looking ahead, what are your goals or aspirations for the future? That's number 23.
Oh man, yeah, that's a great one. So this is a great thing to talk a little bit about. So I work on part of what I do with design. I call or lifestyle design. I have something called the Design Mastermind, and the principles of lifestyle design come down to answering 3 questions. The first one is what do you want? The second one is why do you want it? And then the third one is how are you going to get it? And what I do is I help people figure out what that is in a very specific manner and get a lot of clarity around it. And then we work off of a 3-year roadmap, which is exactly how businesses, when you look at big corporations, that's how they tend to run their corporate strategy. And there's a lot of reasons behind the 3-year mark that I won't get into right now. But right now, I am right in the middle. I'm about 19 months in the middle of my existing 3-year strategy. So to answer your question, what I see immediately right now is continuing to execute the plan that I have in place and then adapting as new things happen. So that's what I have. And right now, my 3 main objectives is to increase my net worth by 30% by the end of this 3-year run. We want to get my wife working she's a physician assistant in orthopedics. And we want to get her working 4 days a week instead of 5. So we want to back that off her a little bit. And then the other thing that we want to do is a dream vacation that my wife has always had, which is to stay in those overwater cabanas that are really, you always see pictures of them. There's some model, walking down the planks or whatever. And they're really cool. They're also really expensive. So we've got that one on the list as well. So those are the 3 objectives that we're working towards.
I love that. I love that. And then number 17, can you share a memorable lesson you learned from failure or setback?
Oh man, I've got plenty of those. If you ain't failing, you ain't trying. Let's see. So you want a business one? You want a business failure?
Or just life in general?
Or just life in general?
Yeah.
I'll give it a good business one because I think hopefully people can kind of take this one to the bank with them, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur or in sales, anything like that. Hopefully this will help you. I invested in a company and it was a local company. I co-founded it. I was primarily doing strategy and funding behind it. And the company ended up taking about 4 years of my time. And when it was all said and done, even though I sold my shares to it, the plan was for me to exit within 4 to 5 years anyway with my co-owner. Even though I exited, I would consider the general venture itself a failure, even though we made the business profitable. The way that it was set up and all the things that I took from it from a monetary perspective were not even close to worth the amount of time that I put into it. If I would have taken that initial seed money and put it into the market or a bunch of other things, like the investment just ended up not being worth it, even though there was a slightly positive outcome to it. So it's not an immediate thing. It was a very drawn out process. And I think when I got done with that, it was really easy to look at it and go, man, I was really disappointed. I was like, man, I could have done so much more with my time and my money. Yeah, I learned some lessons, but the bright side of it just didn't outweigh the downside. And at the end of the day, I had to pick myself back up from that and go, no, like, yeah, okay, it wasn't worth it. It was, at the end of the day, a failure, even though, yeah, there's some successes I could point to. That's okay. It's the fear of failure is not going to continue to stop me from starting another business and trying again. And I think that's really important whenever you're an entrepreneur, whenever you're in sales. You have to understand, one, that sometimes what you're doing, even though it might be working a little bit, it's time to give up on it and it's time to do something different. And it takes a lot of wisdom and a lot of discernment, because on the flip side, you're also going to fail and you need to learn to push through it and keep going. So that's one thing I would say is really tough. And the number one thing that I would tell people to do to make sure that they don't make the mistake of continuing on something that they shouldn't continue on anymore, or quitting something too early, is to have really good mentors in your life who have already done what you're trying to accomplish, and have them put insights into your life that can give you clarity on that.
I love that. I love that. Going to the long question section, I found it's kind of hard to find mentors that are like out there for you and don't have like incentive for you to like win or perform or anything. So what has been your process to find mentors or get mentorship?
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions. So one of the most overlooked areas where anyone can get a mentor is the bookstore and the podcast section and YouTube. Some of the best mentors I've ever had in my life, I've never met. Some of them are dead. And it's just the truth. Napoleon Hill, Cody Sanchez, Gary Vaynerchuk. I could go on. Patrick Bet-David. There's so many people who have taught me so many things, and they don't know my name, they don't know my face, but because they put out these podcasts, they've written these books. Some of them have YouTube channels. I am able to take so much of the information that they offer. And the trick is not to, with any mentor, whether it's something like that or an actual person, the trick is to actually take the advice and do something with it. That's the real trick. You can sit in, I call it productivity porn, where people they'll read these books and they'll listen to these motivational podcasts and, oh yeah, that sounds good. And they get all fired up and they just don't do anything with it. And it's like, all you're doing is just making yourself feel good. You're making yourself feel productive, but it's like, but what did that translate to in the real world? Nothing. Well, theory minus action, knowledge minus action is just theory. So I'm not interested in theory. I want real world experience. That's where it really gets good. So for me, the first thing I would say is that if you aren't investing in podcasts, in books, in YouTube videos, there's such a wealth of information out there. I mean, some of the best stuff you will ever watch or hear is an hour-long podcast. I listened just the other day. I was listening to a podcast with Ryan Pineda. He has a podcast called The Wealthy Way, and he primarily focuses on real estate. That's not my biggest focus, but he had a guy on, and he was talking about how he's run systems in his business. So I said, let me listen to this. Mm-hmm. I changed about 60% of how I run my business based off of this 1 hour podcast. And I would have probably paid somebody $10,000 for them to have shown me what this guy did. That's how valuable it was. But it wouldn't be valuable if I didn't actually do anything with it. But I did. So don't pretend, because it's just an excuse, that there's not valuable information out there. There is. You can find it. So that's the first thing I would say, is you need to do that. That is the lowest hanging fruit. It's out there. It's yours for the taking. You just got to go look for it. The second thing I would say, when it comes to getting an actual mentor, there's part one and part two to this answer. The first part is paying for mentorship. There are lots of coaches. I believe in coaching. I believe in self-investment. It's a little self-serving because it's what I do now. But I believe in it because I do it. And I do it in all aspects of my life. I am trying to get really good at YouTube. I am paying $500 a month to be a part of a YouTube cohort that talks about the business of YouTube, how to make an effective YouTube video, right? So I'm paying for mentorship there. It's just like anything else that we would do in our lives. You're trying to get in really good physical shape, for an event or something like that. You'll probably pay for a personal fitness trainer. Your marriage needs work. Okay, you'll pay for a personal fit or for a marriage counselor. Well, then why is it when it comes to personal growth or investing in our business that we tend to shy away from coaching? We shouldn't. We'll do it if we're sick. We're going to go seek out a doctor. We do this in all other areas of our life. So why should this be different? In my opinion, it shouldn't. So that would be part one of that, is pay somebody for mentorship. It's one of the most guaranteed ways to get results for two reasons. Number one, that person clearly has something figured out because they've already sold it multiple other times, and people are doing it. So they've got some type of system or process that is well baked out that you can consume and hopefully execute. The second thing is that when you are paying for something, across the board, the data is undeniable. When you pay for something, you take it more seriously. Think about this.
Sure.
What's one of the most expensive things that you own?
Me personally?
Yeah, you personally. What's one of the most expensive things that you own?
I mean, I spent a lot for college and stuff. So like,
give me something physical. What's a physical item?
I have a sword.
That's pretty sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
So how much did that sword cost you?
Like $300, $400.
$400. Okay. So would you say that, if your house or apartment was on fire and you could and no living beings are in there, and you can only run in and grab one thing, what's that thing going to be?
For my laptop.
Laptop? Okay, that's fair. There's a lot of important information on that. Minus the laptop, what would it be? Does that sword make the top three?
It's kind of heavy, so I don't know if it'll like.
You're thinking way too functionally about this, but I like your thought process.
Sword makes top three.
But the point is it important to you?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. If that sword only cost you $1,
no,
and you could just get another one, are you running back into the fire for it? Does it make the top three?
No.
Okay. Didn't think so. So that's the point. The point is, when we pay for something, the more money we put into it, the more investment that we have in it. Because paying for something, when we give money away, what we're really doing is we are acknowledging that the time and energy that we spent, the life that we spent to earn that money, is now being exchanged for this item of value. And that's why it's so important to pay for things sometimes, because it makes it more significant to us and we are more likely to value it. So you can look at it across the board. When people give things away for free, I've done this. I will never give away a free or like any of my paid stuff. I will never give it away for free ever again. Why? Because I used to. I've given away over 100 courses. I know exactly how many people that I've given it to out of the goodness of my heart, just wanting to help somebody. I know exactly how many of them have completed it. One. That's it. Why? Because they didn't have any skin in the game. There was no value. Now, if somebody's in a bad spot and I can give them a discount, I'll give them a discount. But they're going to put something up. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. There's an old story in the Bible, actually, and they're standing at this temple, and these people are going up and they're giving these offerings. And this really rich man walks in. He just dumps a ton of money into the offering plate, and then he says his prayer. And then a really poor woman who has nothing walks in, and all she has is her 2 copper coins. And she just puts those 2 copper coins in. And, the story, as the story goes, Jesus looks at his people and goes, "Surely I say to you, this woman has given more than the rich man did." And the reason was because it wasn't about the amount. It was because of what the value was. The value of those 2 coins was way more significant to that woman. That represented possibly her next meal. Whereas for the rich man, yeah, he gave a larger amount, but it was such a small percentage of his wealth, it wasn't a huge sacrifice. So that's why I bring that up, is just to say, if something's important to you, you will invest in it. And if you are important to you, then you should invest in yourself. So that would be it. Now, I'm glad you said this was the long question, because I know I'm giving you a really long answer on this one. So I'll get to the final part of this, which is not paying for mentorship and then just finding somebody. So two or three really important criteria, I would say. Number one, you want to find somebody who is more experienced in the thing that you want. Feels kind of obvious, yet sometimes people don't go far enough with the experience. They may find somebody who's only done what they're trying to do once. And it's like, well, just because they did it once doesn't mean that they've got it figured out, right? Mm-hmm. Try to find somebody who's done what you've tried to do multiple times. You want to get to 100,000 net worth? Don't talk to somebody who has 110,000. They just got there. Talk to somebody who's got 1 million or 500,000, because they've hit 100,000 multiple times in their life. So they can probably speak to it a little more. You want to talk to somebody who's, built up a social media channel. They've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. Okay. And you're trying to get there. Okay. Well, you're not going to go talk to, you know what I mean? You get where I'm going with this. So find somebody who's already been where you want. The second thing I would say is that you need to bring a plan to them, because for a mentor, somebody came up to Warren Buffett one time, one of the richest investors in the world, right? Okay. And they told him, they said, listen, Warren, I want to work for you for free. I just want to be around you. I just want to learn from you. I'll do anything you want. I'll run errands. You just have to tell me what to do. That's it. You don't have to pay me anything. And Warren looked at him and he said, I can't. You're too expensive.
For sure.
And the guy was kind of shocked. He's like, I told you I'd work for free. And it's like, but do you know how much my time is worth? Me, Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, for me to even give you 10 minutes, it's like, that's 10 minutes being taken away from something that could be making him millions of dollars. So even though he was working for free, the value of his time was exponential. So understand that whoever it is you're going for, their time is very important to them. And you need to come and you need to always show up on time. You need to be flexible with them, based off of their calendar. You need to tell them exactly what you want to learn from them. If you come in and you say, hey, I want mentorship, and they're like, okay, what do you want mentorship on? And you're like, just whatever, just show me how to do what you do. It's too broad. You need to come in and you need to be specific. Hey, I want mentorship. Okay, what do you want mentorship on? Can you show me how to be a more effective communicator on a podcast? Can you show me how to build up my social media and to be able to leverage my personal brand? Can you show me, give specifics, pretty much create a curriculum. So all they have to do is show up, know exactly what you want, give you that, and they can leave. That will make them more likely to want to take you on as a mentor. And as long as you communicate with them and you always show up when you say you're going to, the second you stop showing up or communicating or doing anything like that, they'll drop you like a rock, and they should, because you're too expensive. So that's what a very long-winded answer, multifaceted answer to your question.
I love that. I love that. In order to have that, though, in order to have that mentorship, I found that it's important to know what you want.
Absolutely.
Like, you can find a mentor that's like, hey, he's making good money. I want to make good money. But then you actually do it and you're like, no, this is not what I want at all.
It's a very good point. Yep.
100%, 100%. So diving into that question a little bit. Obviously, we can talk a little bit about how to figure out what you want. But my main question was advice for graduates. Because there's graduates that are like, hey, I know what I want to do. And there's graduates that are like, hey, I don't know what I want to do. What would be your advice for them?
So specifically for graduates who are thinking about starting their own company or want to be an entrepreneur someday?
Yeah.
Specifically for them? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's two things. Number one, and this might sound a little strange, but I would go work for a medium to large size company. The reason for that is because if you go to college has set you up. It is not the real world. In college, if anything, in my opinion, does a huge disservice to entrepreneurs, because it is disconnected from the speed of business. I've talked to multiple different students before who have come out of marketing, and it's not shocking to me. I understand why, but it's incredibly disappointing that most of these graduates that come out of marketing have zero social media experience. They don't talk about social media marketing in the majority of college programs. Well, why is that? That's the majority of marketing nowadays. It's because it moves too fast. In 6 months, the algorithms have changed, trending audios have changed, what's working on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, it's not the same that it was 6 months ago. So if you had that in a college curriculum, it'd be irrelevant by the time that you got the class done. So I understand why there's situations like that to where they're not learning practical skills. But at the same time, it doesn't excuse the fact that when you get out into the real world, your degree is relatively useless. Sorry, I hate to break it to people. That's just what what the reality is. So the reason that I say go work at a large business is because you will learn more if you pay attention and if you ask questions. You will learn more from mentors within the business, your manager, your vice president, people who will gladly meet with you if you offer to take them to lunch or do something like that. And you can really learn a lot about how a business functions if you pay attention. And if you do that for 2 to 3 years, number one, it'll fix 2 problems. The first one is you will make money. Well, guess what? A lot of times you need money to start a business. So that's really important. The second is that you will gain a lot of experience. And one of the things you can ask if you don't know what you want to do, if you already have an idea of the business you want to start, great. But if you aren't sure, then when you're in business, the number one thing you just do is go, where are their problems? And where are there problems that aren't being solved at all or aren't being solved very well? Okay, great. Go fix that thing. There's your business plan, the end. So you can find a lot of opportunity. The entire reason that I do what I do right now is because I saw a problem. I realized that there were wealth managers for people who were really wealthy and just wanted to hand off all their money. And then there were a couple little courses for everybody else, but there was nothing in the middle. There was this empty space for this demographic called Henrys, which is high earners, not rich yet. So if you're making $100,000 to $200,000 a year as a household, you don't necessarily have enough money left over at the end of the month to need a wealth manager. But at the same time, if you don't know how to build a financial system and properly align your money and your goals, you're not really investing in making money the way that you should. So I said, okay, there's a problem here. I'm going to solve that problem. And that's what I do now. So that's why I would say go work for a big business. Do it and treat it as just another degree. The only difference this time is they're paying you instead of you paying them.
I love that. I love that. What I had thought of, obviously, you said business. I was thinking that small business would be better just because you can try different things out. You can, like, no risk of losing. Why do you recommend large business and not just like a small business?
Fantastic question. The reason I do not recommend small businesses when you're coming out of a college and you want to really learn about business is because small businesses do not have the resources to really give you the kind of training that you need to become excellent at a particular skill. They just don't have the budget. They don't have the manpower for it. So while you can get involved with a small company, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get really trained up in a skill. Maybe that's sales. And honestly, if you know you want to go the entrepreneurship route, I would highly recommend getting into sales because it is going to teach you how to deal with failure. You are going to have to learn about pipeline, revenue generation, a lot of things you probably never learned about in college, even if you were a business major, right? And it's one of the best preparations for entrepreneurship that there is because, yeah, sure, you'll get out there and maybe you're running a doggy daycare center or you opened up your own butcher shop, or maybe you've got you're a big time engineer and you're coding on the side and, building, some type of software. The one thing that all business owners, when they're entrepreneurs, have in common is that they have to sell, whether or not they were ever trained in sales or not. So I highly recommend sales positions for that reason. And you're going to get better trained at sales at a medium to large organization and you'll get paid better on top of it than you will at a smaller one.
I love that. I love that. Going back to your story a little bit, you talked about how you were with corporate, you were doing that, and then you were just like, no, never mind, I'll go work and do my own thing. What was that journey like? And what was the Russ? I don't know if you know Russ. He's a music artist. He talks about in his book. How he has to have like a certain amount of delusion.
No, I haven't heard of this one.
Yeah. So he has a book. It's called "Get Out of Your Way" by Russ.
Oh,
And
I've
he
heard about
sings
this.
the
Okay,
song
I haven't read it, but I've heard
week
about that
after
book.
week after week. And he was just like a rapper, and he was just like, "Okay, you have to have delusion at the beginning. Then you have to be persistent. Then you have to be grateful for what you have at the end." So, what was your maybe part of your delusion, your persistence, your gratitude, part of your story?
No, that's great. That's interesting. So I'm not sure if I'm understanding exactly what he means by delusion, but basically what it kind of came down to for me was that I just realized the kind of life that I wanted to live. So basically what I realized was this. This was a delusion I woke up from.
Mhm.
I woke up from the fact that the old American dream is dead. That's what I woke up from. The old American dream of the fact that you can go to work for a company for 40 years, do a 9 to 5, have a nice little retirement account at the end of the day, you get have the house with the white picket fence and 2.3 kids and a little bit of money left over on the side to go on a vacation every here and there. That's our parents' American dream. It's not our American dream anymore. And the reason for that is because life's too expensive. You see it all the time. I see it in the data. I think it's hilarious the gaslighting that politicians are doing right now, saying that, hey, the economy's great, everybody's doing well. And it's like, dude, my grocery bill is almost twice as much as it was 4 years ago. What are you talking about? you know? And they're like, well, stocks are up. And I'm like, I have stocks and they're not up that much. And a lot of people don't have stocks. So that doesn't help them. So this delusion that I had that I woke up from was the fact that I realized the kind of life that I want to have where I'm living on my own terms, where I have enough leftover money left over at the end of the month to say F you to a toxic boss. And I can take 6 months off if I want to and travel around with my family and work at things that I find fulfilling. Like that's what I call your FU pile. You need to build up an FU pile so you can be like, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to screw it and figure it out as I go. You know what I mean? Because that's life. And that's the new American dream. The new American dream is that you need to earn money. You need to earn money on your terms, whatever mode that you end up doing that. And then you need to identify very specifically the kind of life you want to have, because you're not just going to casually fall into the fact that you can get a house anymore. When our parents were buying homes, it was about 20% of their monthly income. Now it's like 35%. So, there's a lot of different things about this, the way that we live that older generations took for granted, and it's just not our reality anymore. And that's fine. I'm not blaming anybody for it. But at the same time, we have to wake up to the fact that this is the world that we live in nowadays. And you can still have anything you want. You just can't have everything you want. And if you're not specific about it and you don't build a plan around it, you're not going to get it.
100%, 100%. You were talking. I saw on your LinkedIn a little bit about this TEDx journey.
Yes.
Can you talk
Yeah,
about that a little bit?
just did it recently.
Okay. What was your experience with TEDx? I know it's not out yet.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be out at all. There was an audio issue we've been working on in the back end, but I unfortunately just got the email recently that basically the microphone was not going into the mixer. So the audio sounded great in the house where I was performing, but the only audio they got of the actual speech was like off, by a camera or wherever. So they're going to let me, it's very hard to get booked for a TED Talk. Very hard. I'll talk about that process now, but basically they gave me a rain check and they said, you can come back anytime next year, the year after that. You can do the same topic, talk about another one if you want. You get a free pass. They're very apologetic about it, but it's okay. But overall, basically what happened, it was very much a fluke for me. I had no idea how much of a business was behind TED. To give you, I had watched many TED Talks over the years. One of my favorite is the Talk About Nothing. If you look up that one, I forgot the guy's name that does it. It's brilliant. It's literally a talk about nothing, and yet you feel like it's about something. It's very good, very intelligent. My other one of my all-time favorites is Grit by Angela Duckworth. Read the book because of it. I think it's sitting right back here behind me, wherever. It's one of those. It's a fantastic book, so check that out, Grit. But so there's been a lot of great TED Talks, and After I had quit, I took a year off and I was just building my products. I was building my brand. I was coming from sales into the self-improvement space. I had been coaching on this for 5 years, but it was very much on the DL because I had clauses with the jobs that I worked with saying I couldn't have side hustles. And if I did have one, I had to disclose it to the company. And there was a lot of reasons. There was no way I was going to do that. So I didn't. And I just kept it on the down low and word of mouth. But the point was, when I started my own business, I knew I did not have a brand in this, even though I had experience. So I said, for a year, I'm just going to make content on LinkedIn every day. And I'm going to start making YouTubes, do a podcast, help people out. And then in the background, I will build my products. And then I'll do a launch in like a year. So that's what I did. Well, along the way, I ended up doing a lot of research on why people change and why they don't change. And I was looking for modes and, methods to help people make positive changes in their life. And one of the things that I came across was research on alter egos, which is really fascinating. And I didn't want to just start recommending this to people because it is very well steeped, not only in pop culture, but also in data, that alter egos are incredibly effective at helping us change behaviors. So I said, okay, I'm going to do an experiment on myself for 90 days. And I'm going to create what I call a super alter ego, which is where you actually define characteristics of the alter ego and give it a name. You could think of Beyonce. She has Sasha Fierce. She used Sasha Fierce to get over stage fright. Kobe Bryant, had the Black Mamba. This is a very common thing in performers and athletes. And basically I said, okay, I'm going to make a alter ego. I'm going to name him Hotshot. And Hotshot loves two things that I hate doing. He loves waking up at 5 a.m. real early in the morning, and he loves running 5Ks. And I hate jogging. And I said, if I could learn to love these things over the course of 90 days, then I'll know I can recommend this to other people, and it'll be a good way to help them do change. So the TED Talk was about me talking about what is an alter ego, what is not an alter ego, and then the results of my experiment. And it was a great talk. I still bring it up to people nowadays as whenever we do coaching. And to give you a very quick taste, an alter ego, for those of you wondering, is not a fake version of yourself. That's probably one of the largest misconceptions about alter egos. It is not this fake version that you make up. What an alter ego is certain characteristics about yourself that enable you to succeed in a particular area of life. So Braden, the son, you have, whenever you're hanging out with your parents or if you have siblings, you probably act a little different with them than the way that you interact at your job with your boss or at college with your professors, right? Or maybe even you have a group of friends that you act a little differently with than you do with your parents, right? Are you being fake whenever you're with these different groups and your behavior is altered a little bit? Or are you being you, but you're just accentuating certain aspects about you so you can be more relatable to those people?
Probably the second one, yeah.
Second one, right.
Yeah.
I am not the same person talking with you that I am when I'm on a date with my wife. I'm not being fake with you, right? But I'm also not going to call you sweetheart and get googly eyes, right? And it's still me, but I'm behaving differently. So all an alter ego is a psychological trick for our brain to switch modes and say, okay, what I need to do to be successful on this podcast is different than what I need to do when I'm having an intimate dinner with my wife, because she's not going to appreciate it if I sit here and talk to her in a very business manner. So that's the quick and the skinny on the TED Talk. Do you want me to talk at all about the booking process or all the stuff behind it? It's extensive, so I didn't know if you wanted to get into that.
No, I imagine it's extensive. Because I know what's it called. What's nice about our current media with social media is we don't have to deal with all the logistical stuff.
Oh yeah.
What Casey Neistat, I don't know if you know who he is.
Oh yeah.
About that.
Yeah, love Casey.
Hey, I can just release content. I don't have to deal with HBO or
no
audio problems or if they release my show at 1 p.m. and no one sees it.
It's so true. Yeah, it's very extensive. It's very competitive because I do public speaking, And a lot of people know that if you get a TED Talk, you can usually increase your public speaking fees. So because of that, they literally have coaches. I had multiple coaches contact me. They coach you on how to get a TED Talk, and they charge anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000. And that doesn't even guarantee that you'll get a TED Talk. It'll just increase your chances. Some people I talked to applied to over 200 TED Talks before they finally got one. So it's a crazy process. You have to memorize your talk. You don't get a teleprompter. Most TED Talks don't let you have slides. Mine didn't. Some do. There's a lot of rules around citing sources accurately. I mean, it's a thing. So, but if you ever get the opportunity to do one, I would definitely do it.
100%, 100%. Before we wrap up everything, I wanted to ask one question about branding and then like building a product. So a lot of people confuse branding and building a product because you're like in the background, obviously you're building a product, right? But you're branding at the same time.
Okay.
What was your thought process of like building in front of people and building on social media?
When you say branding, are you talking about personal branding or building the business brand?
Personal branding, I guess.
Personal
I
branding.
don't know what's it called. Some entrepreneurs like build in the background and
Right.
don't talk about the business or like them or what they're doing at all. And some businesses owners are like, I don't know if you know who Aaron Vajan is.
I don't think so.
He documents the process of like building his shoe company.
Okay,
He
cool.
like talks about the meetings he goes on, like the stuff he goes like. I'm saying like a lot, but there's also differences for both of them.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. They're doing like it's a behind the scenes look, kind of, right? So in a situation like that, essentially what they're doing is two different things. They're actually building their personal brand and the business brand. They're showing you how the sausage gets made. And I think that's great. I think it's really cool. I've seen things recently to where, speaking of how the sausage gets made, a lot of millennials and a couple Gen Zers, I've even seen they've quit the corporate life and gone out and bought farms that were failing. And now they're updating the technology, making it more efficient. And then they're literally just making shows about, hey, we're, whatever chicken farm. And look, here's our chickens. They're super happy and grazed. And here's Chloe, the rooster. Or well, a rooster's a male, can't be a girl, but whatever, you get it. And it's like they'll turn their animals into stars. And then it's like, well, what they're doing is they're building their personal brand. I trust this person now. If I'm somebody that cares about food that's farm to table or free graze or whatever the case is, I now can associate with this person's brand because one, they're showing me how things work on their farm. Two, I trust where my food is coming from and that it's being done in a good way. And three, I'm not just connecting with that professional brand with X farm. I'm connecting with the actual farmer. And, then maybe there's even an entertainment aspect to it to where it's like, man, they were city folk and then they moved out to the middle of nowhere and bought this farm. And it's funny how they show their mess ups and oops, I left the gate open and the ducks got out or whatever. I don't know. So I would say for anybody, one of the things I think that is a huge advantage for Gen Z, I think millennials picked up a little bit on this, but we were kind of the guinea pigs with technology. You guys are the digital natives. And what I would say to Gen Z, that I think is a trend most of them are picking up on is in entrepreneurialism, building your brand personally and building your business brand are very important. But I would say the personal brand is more important because people don't buy from businesses, people buy from people. So in a personal brand will travel with you, whether your startup fails or whether you go work at another company somewhere, your personal brand will always be with you. So I would say focus on the personal brand first. If you want to do hey, this is the behind the scenes of how I do my podcast and how I find guests to book and the kind of messages I write in order to try to draw interest and things like that, that's going to build your personal brand, right? Even though you're talking about the podcast, it kind of promotes the podcast. There's going to be somebody out there who might watch that and go, oh, okay, yeah, I've been trying to get people on LinkedIn, but nobody responds to my messages. He writes a really good one. I'm going to try that. And then they'll learn from that. And then they'll connect with you. So I'm all for it. I think building in public can be really good. But the downside to it, I would say, is that it's time consuming. You don't have a lot of time when you're an entrepreneur. So there's that. The other thing that I would say would probably be the downside is the fact that you can show too much. People can be like, oh my gosh, what an idiot this guy is. He doesn't have it together. Sometimes, even though it's good to show the failures, in my opinion, it will turn people off and you might lose business because of it. You might say something that, turns off a section of the population, might make others like you. You never know. So there's anytime you put yourself out there like that, you just have to be able to be ready to deal with the ramifications.
100%. Wasn't that your process though, building in public?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Mine was a little different. I was in a unique position when I started building, and I wouldn't recommend it to most people, but from a wealth perspective, I measure wealth in terms of time, not dollars, because you can make $1 million a year, but if you spend $1 million a year, your net worth is zero. So for me, I had 10 and a half years when I quit of wealth, meaning if me and my wife made zero money and everything stayed the same in our life and our investments didn't go up and all that other stuff, I could live for the next 10 and a half years before my wealth went to zero. So because I had that runway, I was able to take an entire, really, it turned out to be like 18 months and not sell anything and just build in the background and then talk about it in public. Hey, this is what's coming. This is what's coming. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. And then when it launched and it was great. For most people, that's not going to be the reality. They don't have that kind of financial stability behind them. So what I would say, and this is another reason, going back to our previous point of why I would recommend, getting a solid 9-to-5 job out of college. You want to know what's great about a 9-to-5 job? It ends at 5.
Yeah.
And your wealth is not built in your 9-to-5. It's built from your 5 to 9. So what I would say is go get a job, make money, and then start developing your business plan. Whatever it is it's going to be. Start setting money aside to go into your entrepreneurial fund. Start building the website. Start whatever it is. You can start it while you're working the 9-to-5. And that's absolutely what I would do. And then document the process along the way. And I think that's a great way to build up your personal brand. And then, to make headway on, your dreams of starting your own company as well.
100%, 100%. Just wrapping up the show because I got to go. My final question, like we always do in every show, is a millionaire question. It's just like insight for the guests, and then we review them at the end of the season. What do you think your main insight would be?
Think long term. I think a lot of times it's really easy, especially right now, if you're about to graduate college, recently graduated college, things are really tough right now from an economical perspective. Things are really expensive. There's a lot of, it's an election year. People are, pretty down on it in general. And a lot of times the thing that I think that kills people or people's dreams, is the fact that they lose hope and they just don't start. And that makes me really sad. I really hate seeing that. And especially in young people, you should be coming out full of hope, full of ideas, full of optimism. And sometimes I just don't see that as much right now. So what I would say, one of the cures for that is to think long term. And it helps. We actually talk about this in investing all the time. One of the biggest mistakes that people make in investing is they get caught up in the moment. Stocks go down 10% in one day. Your crypto's plummeting 20%. Bitcoin is, down or whatever. It's like, whatever it is, it's like, oh gosh. And then people panic and then they hit the sell button and then it rebounds and it comes back like it always does, kind of thing. Or not all investments come back, but you get my point. It's the same thing in life sometimes. We get stuck in the moment. And then instead of a quick bounce and reverse, we end up selling on whatever it was we were doing. And we miss the bounce back. And we just kind of stay in this valley of disappointment. And what I would say is when you know where you're going, when you've got it, this is where I want to be in 3 years. This is why I operate on a 3-year window. When I know this is where I'm going to be in 3 years, it doesn't matter if I'm having a bad day or a bad week or even a bad month. I can zoom out and say, okay, yes, I'm stuck in this little pit right here. But look at how great the journey was up until that point and look at where I'm going. I know I'm going to get there. So this is temporary and I'm going to get past this. And that's why I would say to people, think long term. When you have a destination in mind, you know where you're going, it'll make the bad days go by a lot faster.
100%, 100%. Thank you for that. In the chat, we're going to put his LinkedIn and other information. So if you want to reach out, if you
Yes,
want to connect,
please.
that as well. Talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon. It's been fun.